Jiimmy Ɓell fell down a well. He fell so far he went to hell. A dried up well was bad enough, but soon he'd find things really rough. A long way down in the black, he finally landed with a sickening thwack. Stumbling forward, he was filled with fright. Eventually, the darkness turned to red light. A vermilion sky and rusty dunes, distant peaks of dark maroons. Skulls and bones were on the ground, and sulfur pits burned all around. He rubbed his eyes and held his nose. Bodies were lined in rows upon rows. Within the smoke a figure appeared. His eyes gleamed ochre as he neared. Two mighty horns and skin so red, his very presence spelled out dread.
What have we here? A little boy? Such a sight in a place with no joy.
The devil spoke in a frightening voice. Jiimmy replied, for he had no choice. I found a strange well and fell inside. I'm very sorry, sir, Jiimmy cried.
I'm no sir, and worry not. I think I like you quite a lot. I'll show you my home. Here, take my hand. God has his world, but this is my land. I know it's hot and can seem rather cruel, but I assure you, lad, that I am no fool. Come follow me and forget your tears, for it isn't as bad as it appears.
He held out his palm and smiled quite odd. Jiimmy complied with a hesitant nod. Oh, okay, sir. Just please be kind, Jiimmy whispered as he followed behind.
Call me Sam, for I have a name. My other titles carry too much fame. But I exist, you'll find this true. I am a past, present, and future like you.
The boy felt eased and lifted his head, for if Sam had wanted, he'd already be dead. And after all, there was something about this scarlet figure that had such stout. He was more than just a physical threat. He carried a burden like that of regret. As they went forth, he shifted his tone. It didn't take long to see they were alone. Despite the body's bones and decay, he had yet to see suffering in any way. If this was hell, then where were the sinners? Where were the dealers, stealers, and spinners of lies and deceit and spreaders of strife? Where were the killers and enders of life?
That's the question.
Sam smiled with a glint, though Jiimmy had said nothing, not even a hint.
If you look around, what do you see?
I see nothing but death, and you and me. The devil laughed and became quite still. He pointed ahead at a massive hill. Forward they went without speaking a word. But as they climbed higher, a weird sound was heard. It sounded like wind, no, more like fire. Louder and louder as they went higher and higher. When finally they had reached the top, the devil motioned for them both to stop. Approaching the cliff, the boy could now see there was nothing beyond but endless sea. Yet instead of being blue, it seemed quite pale. Wait, this wasn't a sea any boat could sail. Upon closer inspection, with a sharper look, Jiimmy realized that he had mistook. That instead of an ocean of rolling waves, this was not how water behaves. This was people, writhing around, wedged together as though tightly bound. The sounds they heard were endless screams, of millions of souls that were once human beings. But now they cried out in horrid despair, as this was their fate for their life's heir. They looked like death, all pallid and white, all skin and bones, such a disturbing sight. They reached up above as though pleading to God. Jiimmy glanced at Sam, who replied with a nod. "What is this? Some sea of the dead?" Sam replied no, by just shaking his head. Jiimmy knew then that these bodies all crammed were not the dead, but rather the damned.
Forever will they suffer under my sky. There is no doubt they wish they could die. But for their acts of cruelty and greed, they suffer exquisitely and can only accede. But now we must travel to the other side. There's something beyond that I mustn't hide.
What did he mean, to the other side? They'd never cross, no matter how they tried. As they both trekked down the dangerous slope, he could see all their faces in the absence of hope. Their moans were too much as he covered his ears. This hell was much worse than all of his fears. Not too far off in the distant smoke was a small wooden raft, and a figure in a cloak. Two amber eyes peered out from its hood. Jiimmy squeezed Sam's hand tight as he could. They approached the small boat and stepped upon. Sam motioned for the figure to guide it along. Still, with no water, how could it float? How could they travel on such a boat?
Their hands will support us,
said the devil.
They will carry us to wherever we travel. Do not pity them, for in some small measure, it's truly an honor, perhaps even pleasure, to support their lord and any of his guests on this craft towards their requests. Now this life is all they'll ever know, so they are honored to keep us in tow.
No, no, I don't want to go. I don't want them to tow. I don't want to know. Jiimmy tried hard to hide his fear. The craft was moving, that was clear. Despite once or twice losing his balance, he stayed on his feet and showed such valiance. Sam held his shoulder to keep him aloft.
Bad things happen to those who fall off. This ocean is deeper than the tallest tree. There are many more people below what you see. In fact, layers and layers of human knolls reach far below these screaming souls.
So across the suffering sea they went. He soon lost track of the time they spent. What seemed like minutes may have been more. Just a few moments could be an hour or 4. The time felt off in this dreadful place, but that was more than a boy could face. As clamoring hands held up the hull, the boat would buckle, hitting bone and skull. Forward and back and side to side, the small craft sailed on a moaning tide, until at last they saw something near, and once again he was filled with fear. Up ahead, under the burning red sky, he finally saw it and let out a sigh. On the edge of the shore stood a black tower. It was darker than soot, and tall and dour. It was oddly tall, as it seemed not to end. How could something so tall not at all bend? A colossal spike rising up to the sky, a dwelling of darkness to which they were nigh.
This is our goal, Jiimmy. We're finally here. Eventually acceptance will replace your fear. I have much to teach you and more to show. But for now, this is where we must go.
The devil spoke with solemn aplomb. I'm sorry, sir, but I'd like to return home. This is a place where I'm clearly not meant. Falling in that well was just an accident. Will you please take me back to where I belong? I'm sure they'll notice that I've been gone so long. Will you please show me how to get back above? I miss the place where I felt such love. Of my parents and grandparents and even pets. I dearly miss them and I have many regrets. The devil paused and looked away. He seemed overcome with utter dismay.
I'm sorry, boy, I truly am. There is a reason why I'm called Sam. Samael, the Lord of Hell, tempter, accuser, the one who fell. Lucifer, Satan, Lord of the Flies, concealer, deceiver, the father of lies. I am the one who had the most glory, but then, well, you know the rest of the story. Now here I am, in a world of no joy, to watch over the evil and those who destroy. Yet some make it here without a crime, and here they'll stay too for all of time. It's a vicious cycle, don't you see?
The devil spoke so convincingly.
But for you, it's much worse than you think. A year up above is here just a blink. I know it seems real, the detail and depth, but long ago you gave your last breath. You disappeared and there were many tears. Unfortunately, it's now been 93 years.
Jiimmy Ɓell fell down a well. Now he rests where dead things dwell. In the shadows of a deep, damp pit. Bones in the dark, that was it. A tale to be heard and never forgotten. Bad things can happen to those that aren't rotten. That's all, that's that. It's tit for tat. Farewell to the end. I tip my hat.